able to learn anything quickly and easily, I think that that was achieved even without, I mean, for me, even without learning the Quran, you know, because when I came back and I started going to school, I mean, I had never been in school, but everything was like really, when I started learning stuff, because I didn't start going to school like learning stuff, I mean, until I was 18, you know, back here in the States. So English, or like going to classes, stuff like that, learning this, learning that, in a school setting, like a setting that wasn't, you know, either Arabic or you know, French or something like that, you know, just English. It just became really easy. Everything was like really easy for me to learn. Like before, it was hard, but after I came back, everything. Even today, I can just pick up stuff, learn stuff. I mean, you show me one time and that's it. It's really easy stuff. I mean, really, really easy for me to pick up and learn stuff. Before, it wasn't the case. You know, I remember being in Senegal and not being able to learn shit. I don't know what the hell was going on. I was just like, oh, you know, I can't learn French. Learning the Quran is like struggle. I don't know what the hell. You know, I can't memorize shit. But I wasn't really trying to. Like, it's not what I wanted to do. I wasn't motivated at all to learn any other language or the Quran or anything else, really. I didn't see the purpose, and I just wasn't there, you know. So,
but nevertheless, in Al-Hanafiya of Luga, you still managed to be
but
at the Excel level.
That wasn't, man,
So
it wasn't, I don't know. It was just, and that's what I'm saying, like at that point, stuff, I was like 16, 17 at the time, right? So it wasn't really, I don't know. I wasn't really learning anything, though. I mean, it was
nevertheless,
weird,
you made the grades.
Yeah, I made the grades. I made the grades somehow.
And within your studies, you studied not only Arabic language or Arabic grammar, you also studied French, and you studied Al-Hanafiya. You studied French. You studied the Arabic grammar there, as well as other subjects pertaining to religious rulings, such as fiqh, the jurisprudence. You also took Tawheed. You also took... Okay. So, after it's all said and done, that was actually the last school that you had attended in Senegal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the last school before I left and came back here.
Okay. And then when you did come back, you got into school in the United States on the basis of what you had taken, not to mention the books that you said Umi had actually gotten to you to read.
Yeah, well, when I came back, I tried to go, as far as like learning is concerned, like legitimately trying to learn. I went tried to get my GED, so I went to this program and I studied for like a year, and then then I took the GED test. I remember I went, but there was something with my eligibility, and they wouldn't give me my grades. I don't know what it was. Something with my age at the time. I don't think I was 19. I wasn't 19 when I took it. I think at that time I had to be 19 years old. Out of high school for 2 years, or 19 years old, or some shit like that.
Definitely the rules for taking and passing and being eligible for these type of things change over the years, but nevertheless, you got your GED, and then you winded up.
I studied for it, and I took it, but I didn't receive the actual grades.
But eventually, maybe it was some years later when you did get the grades. Did you
Never got my grades. Never got my grades ever.
Okay.
For it, never.
So what did you do in terms of enrolling in the military? Because you had to have something to enroll there, right?
Yeah. It was like a type of like a waiver.
You got a waiver to get into the U.S. military?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was a waiver.
Okay. That is very interesting. We never heard of that one before, but nevertheless, we will,
Yeah, there's waivers.
Okay.
There's waivers.
So.
And a waiver, and my recruiter was very resourceful guy. So he his possibility that he located some of my documents somewhere that.
No, we don't want to go. We don't want to go that far out into how you were recruited into the U.S. military, because this is not our concern. What our concern is the purpose of the mission that you were somehow involved in back in 1983, having to do with finding the resources of the Quran. You were sent over to Africa with 2 of your younger brothers. You went to Medina Bay, you came back to the United States, you returned again, only to Tuba under Sheikh Abdul Ahad Mbake, who you, as you mentioned, directed yourself and 2 brothers over to Dakar. And you stayed there for 3 years. Your younger brothers were able to get into French school. You, on the other hand, were circulating throughout the compound. We want to ask something very, very, very important. And this has to do with Luga, because there is a palace of Jilimbai there, correct? The name Jilimbai's palace in Luga. Is he there? Okay. Jilimbai's palace in Luga. It is said that when you saw it for the first time, it was not in the same or at the same chance. When did you first see Jilimbai's palace?
I first saw his palace when I went to the Magal. I don't know, not Magal. It was some. What was it? I think it was Laylatul Qadr or something like that. With Umi, and we went to Saint Abbasal's house. And they had some. I think it was like something there.
And this was prior to you attending Al Hanafiya?
Yeah, this was before. Yeah, you guys were in Kola at the time.
And just to be clear, you're talking about the small palace or the bigger palace in the back? Because
it was a small one.
Because we all know that when you go into the entrance of the big, fence, which is a good 3 miles long square footage. You go in and then you have the small palace and then the big palace, and then you have the villas 3 villas on the right, 3 villas on the left, right? And between the
Right.
small palace and the big palace is also a swimming pool there. And that's where, a lot of things took place. In the garden on the left of that or the right of that or just the opposite side, there's also a prayer area, like a little masjid that he had there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I went to this small palace.
Now, is this the same palace where the second Eid, Eid al-Adha, 1988, 1990, 1989, was that the last year the last Eid al-Adha you were in Luga? Do you remember
Right.
that? And
Yeah.
and where did you spend your Eid for that one? Do you remember?
No. Maybe. I don't know. Luga probably.
Yes, of course. We were all in Luga, right? But for the last Eid that we actually spent in Luga, do you remember having lunch there with Jilimbai in the palace again?
Yeah, vaguely remember. Yeah, yeah, we yeah, yeah, I remember that.
Tell me what you remember of that.
We were, just going there and hanging out and eating, playing and talking and drinking and
You were
nothing
eating
really.
and playing and talking with Jilimbai.
Jilly, no, his kids, not him. You mean, are you talking about something specific?
Well, yes. So
Jilly Bay?
specifically for that year, Malika Mauna Muhammad the First happened to be on the scene. And if you remember, for the past 3 times that she showed up at his residence, Aminta Surah, rahmatullahi alayha, of course, she used to put her up in her villa because each of his wives had 2 villas in the Sanchie, what is known, because we don't say, that's not the palace of Jilimbai necessarily as it is the Sanchie. The Sanchie is the whole entire 3 square mile garden and palaces and everything on the inside. But anyway, Malik Amon Muhammad will be placed up in one of those villas across from Aminta Suran's residential villa. And because we happened to already be there with her, lunch itself, maybe not enough people were there with him to where we were actually called in to make sure that we had lunch with him. There's that possibility, I'm afraid, because I remember specifically in that small palace, in the very first entrance is where they had actually put down the food and the plates of food, and he sat right across from yours truly. And that was the eat lunch that we had that time. And I remember that there was so much food you couldn't stop eating, but then you were in trouble the next day. I can specifically say that night particularly, I will never forget it.
You ate too much.
Definitely yours truly did clear it up. But moving along, because that was the last year in Luga. But before going out too far from Luga, there are a few things. There was an incident in which yours truly was taken to the emergency room for a stabbing. Do you remember that incident?
For stabbing?
A stabbing
in Luga.
in Luga. Because if you remember correctly, there was a fight that had taken place in the forest. And when it was over, it was a one-on-one fight. And when it was over, I kept sleeping it away inside the room. I kept sleeping. And then finally, Papa Mayra, remember Papa Mayra? He finally came and he looked at that wound and he said, "You have to go to the emergency for that." It happened maybe like days later because it was swollen and everything. And then they finally treated it. But yeah, you don't remember that.
I don't think I was there.
You were there. You don't think you were there.
I really would have remembered a stabbing.
No, you were not there to see the stabbing. But what you were there for was the
Are you going to the hospital?
yeah, that part you were there for. I mean, you know it had to happen. You know it happened. But how about what really trips me out about Luga were those war series that they had out there. Somehow, some Bai Issa's Talibes, the daughter of Bai Issa's Talibes, and sitting Abbas Talibe happened to be out in the forest hunting or whatever for trapping birds, basically. And they crossed each other's lanes, and then a fight broke out. That one fight later on would lead to, days of battles. Like after class, everybody they'll be meeting. Everybody would be meeting over on the grounds, okay, where where things initiated, and that's where these battles between the two schools would take place and everything like that. But I remember what broke it up because it was going on daily. It was going on daily. In fact, Luga is where, on one occasion, when I say they, sitting Abbas's Talibes were on their way to the battlefield, and they passed by Yeve Isa. Isa. And he said he was going to pray for them to win. Well, when they got there, instead they got chased. And he got confused as to who they were. So he ran towards the guys who were giving chase, talking about some, "I prayed for you." And so they let him have it. But yeah, those were some very interesting battles. I mean, those were battles. Those were battles because.
So wait, who stopped the battles?
Okay, now let me tell you how the battle stopped. You remember little Omar Khan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm glad you do. At some point, he decided that he was going to go to the football field and call both parties to play football instead of continuing with these battles. And it worked. So the diplomacy there, again, we can see goes all the way back that far as well. I think that, I don't know, where were you when the first Gulf War became big news in Dhaka? Where were you at the time?
What Gulf War?
The first Gulf War.
First Gulf War in 1990?
Correct.
I was taking my GED classes.
You already, but when the invasion began, were you already back in the United States?
I was already in the States.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. So, I mean, I think as far as Senegal is concerned, this is as much as we can, elaborate on Senegal. But then the Gambia would be very interesting because, but nevertheless, like when you say the Quran, uh, mainly motivated her to send you and your brothers over there to learn it. And then you spent from 1983 to 1990. You came back without the Quran, and then you say you still managed to have an advantage there. I mean, that definitely says a lot. How about the ones who completed? Would not even complete in Senegal. None of those who went to Senegal even completed in Senegal. The only completions would be in the Gambia. The only completions would be in the Gambia, and we will have to dig into that because it's very interesting. Very interesting to see. I mean, you're talking maybe 5 years later, and then you're talking a total of 12 years. What was really, and after, and this is that far back, but between then and now, I mean, what has come of it? Where has it managed to land everyone at this point? And going forward, we will put the matter in the hands of the junta. Yeah, alhamdulillah. Inshallah, brother, we will let you